Welcome to the WagerTalk Podcast for the week ending September 3rd. We've got a big show tonight as Chris Andrews joins us to talk about Week 1 college football action. We also have another segment of Handicappers Corner. This week, we're going to take a look at the NFC South and West, wrapping up all of the division previews. I'm joined in studio tonight with my partners in crime, Ralph Michaels and Dave Cokin. And, of course, behind the controls is Mark Seidel, making sure we sound good. We're going to preview some big games on the football slate this weekend. So let's just get this party started. I'm Marco D'Angelo, your host, and let's bring in our first guest tonight. And tonight we've got Chris Andrews on board. He is the sportsbook director at the South Point Hotel and Casino here in Las Vegas. You can follow Chris on Twitter at Andrews Sports. Chris, welcome to the show, and things getting a little busy down there at the South Point. Opening Thursday night, final week of preseason action. We got college football, and I'll tell you what, one of the better opening weekends of college football. We got some big games on tap. What I want to ask you, and thanks for coming on, and we love having sportsbook operators on all season long. Take us, behind the window. Let us peek at what's going on with the games. And first week, are you getting any sharp action on any particular sides?
Well, we've had a lot of sharp action. We opened in May, if you remember, so we've had a ton of early business. Today we're getting some business back and forth, so the early action we've had was great, but now these are probably a little more originally I think guys are just playing a lot of value, and no doubt they got them, and now they're looking a little more for winners. So a lot of money on Northwestern. I heard Thorson's supposed to play for Northwestern. A lot of money there. I think that's going to be a great game tonight, by the way. We had some sharp money show up on Wake Forest today as well. So those are probably the two sides that say we got some sharp action today on.
What do you got going on Saturday? Where are the sharps early so far, Saturday action?
Well, the big play early was Michigan. I opened Notre Dame a big favorite. I opened them 7, so I got pounded down with that one. I've had to adjust my power ratings a little bit, but I'm just not that crazy about Michigan this year. I know a lot of guys are. I'm just not, and I do think Notre Dame's going to be really good. And believe me when I tell you, I'm not much of a Notre Dame fan at all, but I do think they're going to have a pretty good year. Other than that, we've had a lot of money back and forth on the Auburn-Washington game. Depending on the number, we did have some sharp guys early bet Auburn at a pick 'em. We went up all the way as high as 3. Now the Washington money's coming back in pretty good, and we're down to 1.5. Also had some Cincinnati money show up when UCLA had some problems there with some of the kids on their roster, and we got some Cincinnati money that did come in. Other than that, Texas was another one, but of course we had the problems with Maryland with the coaching staff, and unfortunately the one young man did pass away, and the blame went to the strength and conditioning coach. So a little bit of a shake-up there. So some on Maryland's side. So money did come in on Texas, sharp money. You're just trying to figure out the situation at Maryland. But other than that, nothing too crazy this week. But like I said, that's what happens when you open real early. A lot of the real sharp numbers get taken out pretty quick.
So let me talk about one game specifically, because this won't be as high a volume game as an Auburn, Washington, or a Michigan, Notre Dame. And you can explain why a line move takes place like this on an Akron, Nebraska game where it's just been this flood of Nebraska action. But is it really a flood, or is it just respected money that's causing you to bump the line considerably quicker than maybe you would on another game?
Well, I'll tell you, you're kind of right, Dave. We moved that a little quicker, but part of the reason is we have a lot of Nebraska exposure on pretty much everything. Season win totals. We've had a lot of money on Nebraska over there. We've had money on Nebraska to win the Big Ten. If you look at our games of the year, we've had a lot of Nebraska play there as well. Now, I think Scott Frost is great, and I have some people that are close to the Nebraska program, including Michael Gahn, and John Gahn. So I'm kind of a little bit of a Nebraska fan, but I'm not sure how great they're going to be this year. I was reading where like the second and third string quarterback transferred out, so right now they have one scholarship quarterback on the roster, and he's a freshman.
Yeah, he's good,
he's
though.
Great.
Yeah.
I heard he's terrific, but boy, they better hope he holds up healthy all year, because if not, that's going to be a pretty serious drop-off. So I think Nebraska is going to be real good. I think this number's gotten a little high myself. I don't think Akron is all that bad, and first-year coach, first game. I kind of like betting against these first-year coaches, and something I've been saying for years, they all sound great on the way in. They don't sound so great on the way out. But I do think Frost will do well, but maybe not season one, and especially not game one.
I'll jump in for a second on Nebraska, because I actually do a weekly show in Nebraska, so I got to follow the Cornhuskers pretty closely. And I'm surprised that you're telling me the money that you're getting on season win totals and to win the Big Ten, because if you look at this team's schedule, they play 9 bowl teams this year. All 5 of their road games are against bowl teams, and they get the big 3. Michigan, Ohio State, and Wisconsin all on the road.
Yep.
I don't know how this team can do it. And you talk about a first-year coach. I know the hype is there, and I love the hire of Scott Frost. But remember, when you come in that first year, those aren't your players that you're dealing with. Those are the recruits from the previous coach, and not all the time do they fit right into your system. I just don't see it, but we'll see how it plays out. He is a tremendous coach, and they wanted him, and they got him. We'll see how the year plays out. They'll definitely be a better team, but, man, that schedule is absolutely murderous this year.
Marco, just to jump in, we opened the season win total at 6. We're up to 7, and your guys know that's a pretty big move to move a whole game. So a lot of money did show in this Nebraska team over. I thought my 6 was a pretty good number, to tell you the truth, largely due to the schedule. But like I said, that first-year coach, if you bet against most first-year coaches, I think overall you'd probably do pretty good.
I want to throw one other team at you, Chris, because they do get a lot of local action. They're not in the Mountain West anymore, but, let's face it, there are a lot of BYU fans in town, or fans that can't stand BYU. So you get action both ways involving them. Boy, I mean, maybe I'm getting a bad read. I think this coach is over his head. I think the program will probably have to change coaches at the end of the year. And even this first week, I didn't bet the game because I think the number's gotten a little high. But is BYU going to be fade material for the respected bettors this season?
Oh, my God, Dave, I couldn't agree with you more. I think this coach is in way over his head. It's just one of those things when you get trapped into you have to hire a Mormon coach. And, listen, I respect a lot of things about the University of BYU, and I have some relatives that are Mormons, and they're the nicest people in the world. But, boy, I'll tell you what, you get out in the football field, you got to win some games. And I'm not sure this guy has it in him, and I'm not sure they've recruited all that well the last couple of years. Yeah, I think Arizona, a lot of people pretty high on Arizona as well. I'm not sure I agree with you, Dave. I think that I think the number's reasonable if you want to bet the favorite. I don't think it's gotten away that much at all. We're sitting at 12 right now, and I think that's pretty much, I say 11.5 and 12. And I kind of like the favorite in this game. I hate to bet too much chalk, especially early on, but I think Arizona's probably the right side.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I made the number 14, so, it's not monster value, but... And Arizona's got a kid they would like to have in New York City at the end of the year at the Heisman handout, and Webb. I mean, his kid's a fantastic.
Tate, absolutely.
Tate, excuse me. So, if they get a chance to get an extra score or two, they're the type of team that might do it. And I think Kevin Sumlin would like to get his Arizona regime off to a good start. I'm not wild about Sumlin, though.
I talked about betting against first-year coaches, but I think this might be a little bit different situation. I think Sumlin's going to do pretty good in Arizona, too, by the way.
Chris, couple numbers to back your BYU fade theory. They faced 4 Power 5 teams last year, and they weren't great Power 5 teams, LSU, Utah, Mississippi State, and Wisconsin, and they got outgained by 315 yards per game. Their 4 wins last year, Portland State, San Jose State, UNLV, and Hawaii. So you have the worst of the worst compounded by beating only the worst of the worst.
Yeah, I think the chalk here is the right side in this game.
Chris, shifting gears for a moment and heading to the NFL. We've had 3 preseason games under our belts now. Tonight, we're taping on Thursday. They'll finish up the season. Now that everybody's gotten, somewhat of a look at the teams, have you had any movement on any season win totals, futures guys, some sharp guys coming in, or even just, over-the-counter guys that they saw something, they like it, and now they're overreacting to it?
Well, just before we got on the phone here, and I don't want to say who the guy is, but he's been a customer of ours, sharp player, came in, he bet me four NFL season win totals, 10,000 a rattle. He bet the Bears over 7. He bet the Patriots under 11.5. The Eagles under 10.5. And then he bet the Falcons over 9.
Yeah, I think you broke up on the first one. Was the first one the Bears?
Bears over 7.
Over 7, yeah. So, he kind of counterintuitive. He bet against both Super Bowl teams, but bet under on both Super Bowl teams. And Falcons, we've had a lot of guys are pretty high on the Falcons.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, I think they're going to be pretty good too. Anyway, yeah, I would call this guy, pretty sharp guy. But like you said, once we're to this point, we opened the season win totals in May as well. We've done a ton of business, and kid come up and he's guy. I call him a kid. He's 50 probably. But he came in and he said, he wants to bet these 4 sides 10,000 apiece, and he's bet us before, usually pretty big numbers, and we said, yeah, sure, go ahead. So we put him on, and I'd call this guy pretty sharp, I could tell you that. But we put him on. We had room for him, just with the big handle we've had so far. So, but pretty good play.
Hey, Chris, compared to you and Dave, 50 is a kid.
Well, thanks a lot. Listen, let me tell you.
I don't want to be the only one. Okay.
Yeah, but the good news is Jimmy Vaccaro refers to even our age group as kids. Okay?
Hey, Chris,
still kids, Dave.
Yes.
Yeah, if you heard the stories before we got on the air, you would know Dave's a kid.
Yeah, I know.
Jumping back to the college. Chris, tell us, I'm always excited about the handle in the first week of college football. Can you tell us the 3 games that you took the most handle from or the most tickets?
Got to be Michigan, Notre Dame,
and
right?
then will the Sunday and Monday standalone games top? Do you expect them to top what you're going to do Saturday?
Well, first of all, when you're looking at these night games, if it's a big game, that always brings out the most business. And you got Notre Dame and Michigan. People, their passions run high for and against both those teams. So that I think undoubtedly that'll have the most action by the end of the week. The Washington. The Washington Auburn game, like I said, we opened that game pick 'em. We went up to 3. We're back down to 1.5. So a lot of two-way business on that one too. And I think that's the game I want to watch more than any other this
that's
week.
A big game. Yep.
Both teams have legitimate shots to win a national championship, and 2 terrific coaches, 2 terrific programs. So that's the one I really want to watch. And if I had to pick a third game, the West Virginia-Tennessee game, that's one of those where it's really West Virginia more than anything. If you saw our season win totals, it's like through the roof on West Virginia, but both ways. We got a lot of guys that think West Virginia is not going to be that good. I happen to be one of them. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people that think West Virginia is going to be really good. And so we've seen a lot of that in the season win totals to win the Big 12, and this game here, we have been all over the place on this game. I hope whoever wins lands nowhere near the number, because we've been from 7 up to 10 and back down and back up. So that game has really sparked an awful lot of action, and that should be a really good game, I think. Yeah. But anyway, those 3 games are the ones bringing the most business. As far as like the Sunday and Monday game. We've had great action on both of them. You never know how this works out. Sometimes, if we have a big weekend, guys are going to be looking to get even, and that tends to pump up the handle a little bit there, too. But sometimes if they win, too, that they're always looking to press. So we'll probably have a pretty good handle on those. And those are 2 pretty good games, too, the LSU-Miami game and the Virginia Tech-Florida State. We'll see what happens at the end of the week. It should be a great weekend, really should.
Chris, I'm with you on as far as wanting to watch West Virginia, Tennessee, because Tennessee is one of the most interesting teams to me. I thought Butch Jones, and I said this in the radio show, he's the worst clock management coach I've ever seen. And the team quit in several games last year. And now you've got a coach who wasn't the first choice, he wasn't the second choice, might not even be the third choice. So he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. Tennessee could be interesting this year. I know that they're not going to compete for any titles in the SEC, but I think they might be a little underrated.
Well, they've had a lot of talent because really Butch Jones really did a terrific job recruiting.
Yes, he did.
But he was a horrible on-field coach, whether it's clock management or any other strategies. Boy, that team really should have been a lot better the last couple years. Now, can a new coach come in there and put in his system and use all of Butch's players? I don't know. That's a question mark. But I think you're right. That's an interesting team. I think that that team could win 4 games or 8. And I wouldn't be all that surprised.
Chris, jumping ahead to next Thursday night, the NFL season kicks off. We've got the annual opening game where you've got the Super Bowl winner. Philadelphia will be at home hosting Atlanta. We don't know which quarterback's going to be there. I'm suspecting it's going to be Foles. I just don't see that Wentz, without any preseason action, is going to be ready to go. Do you make any difference in the line with either quarterback at this point?
At this point, no, I don't. Just because, like you said, I think Wentz is obviously the better quarterback. I mean, the guy was on his way to winning the MVP last year, even though he was just a second-year player. So I think the world of him. The thing about Foles, I think he's either really, really good, which he was in the Super Bowl, or he's really bad, as he was I can't remember the game, but 2 weeks before, they were horrible. That's the thing about Foles, just no consistency. I personally don't see a big change in the number no matter what. Like I said, I'd love if this was mid-season, I'd give you a different story. But I think Wentz, with really virtually nothing under his belt except for practices, I think him and Foles, in my opinion, would be equal at this point.
Chris, couple shout-outs to you. For those that don't know, the South Point, a 24/7 sports book, I think the only one in Vegas, an incredible situation to have. And also, tell us about, you guys are the sponsor for a NASCAR race coming up, and I was looking at some of your packages, being able to stay at the hotel where the drivers stay, get bus packages out to the race. Can you tell our listeners how to take advantage of that?
Ralph, you're an all-sports guy. You were here first day when we opened all the college football, and I think you were here for the pros. Maybe not. I know you're a college guy. Yeah. But, you're looking at the NASCAR, too. We got some great packages, and I think I'd pump it a little more, but I think we're already sold out for that weekend.
Good job, bro.
Never mind. Edit that out.
If anybody wants rooms, they're $450 a night or something like that for a single. So we're just about sold out. But if anybody's listening and wants to come, they'll probably squeeze you in somewhere. But bring your wallet, I would tell you. But it should be a great weekend here at the South Point. All the drivers coming in, but we got a bunch of the teams staying here and stuff. So if you're a NASCAR fan, we're really proud of it. And I can tell you this: we've worked with NASCAR for a couple months since we got this. And if anybody knows Michael Gaughan, the way he operates, everything is top notch and great participation from us as a management team in the race itself. And I know NASCAR's been really impressed, and they've been really grateful and great to work with. So I think we'll have a great weekend then, too.
Will you be in the pace car?
I will not. I will be watching college football that day. Oh, no, it's on Sunday. I'll be watching the NFL. So.
Hey, Chris, I know you guys made an announcement this week, some exciting stuff, in-game wagering. Tell our listeners about it.
Well, again, to go back to Michael Gaughan, Michael always said, let's take care of the room first. That's the number one priority. And whatever we do on the app, that's great, but let's take care of the room first. And as a result, he didn't want us to concentrate on in-game wagering. Well, he's changed his mind. So this year he says he really wants to go after in-game wagering. So we hired 2 people and put 3 of our supervisors on that they're just going to be handling that. So I think this week, we got 36 games that we're going to do in-game on. So we'll have as good a menu as anyone else in the city with in-game wagering. We see that as an opportunity that, we purposely didn't jump on in the past, but we are now. And I think we'll be one of the major players in that space.
Yeah, another good reason you got to have the mobile app.
Yeah, for sure. And I tell guys, even if you're sitting in the room, the mobile app is the way to go. You don't have to stand in line. You're not going to miss a number. If you see a game go from 3 to 3.5 and you want the dog, jump in on that plus 3.5. Might not last long.
The important question, too, for those that follow Chris on Twitter, does the hot dog quota go up now that football's here?
Oh, God, are you kidding me? Hey, listen, I'd like to lose my job and just run the hot dog cart. Are you kidding me? They do great over there.
You love the South Point, and I'll tell you what, Chris, I'm going to get a little mushy on you here a second because you are one of my absolute favorite bookmakers in town, and I want to emphasize the word bookmaker because it's becoming a lost art. You've got too many corporate companies that are bean counters looking at everything going on. They don't understand how to take a bet. You guys, you and Jimmy Vaccaro down there, you guys hang up a number, and, kudos to you. We were talking about, your early numbers you put up. You guys came out with the games of the year in May, let people come in and bet the games. You put a number up, you'll take a bet. And other places, they're showing sharp players the door. That's not you guys' philosophy, and I like it. And you guys are old school. And I joke about your age, but I love old school bookmakers, and you are the epitome of it.
I'm going to say you like old guys.
No. All right, Dave, you got me back. All right, one up on you there. But seriously, kudos to you guys and Jimmy and Michael Gahn for letting you guys run that book the way it should be.
Well, thanks. And, really, it starts at the top with Michael, but working with Jimmy is fantastic. We've never thrown out any sharp guy for winning, never once. Listen, I love working here. I love it at the South Point. And, my wife, she kids me all the time. She says, you love your job more than you love me. I said, well, it's close. I have to tell you that. So, you're right. I love being here. So I love this organization. And, hey, listen, I'm like you guys. I love this business. I can't imagine doing anything else. So here we are.
All right. Hey, Chris, again, thanks for joining us. I hope to have you on a few times during the season.
My pleasure.
I love your insight and good luck this weekend on all the games that I'm not on a particular side.
There you go.
Hey, you know the way it is. Every man for himself in this racket, so we understand that going in.
All right, Chris. Thanks a lot, buddy. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, it's Handicappers Corner up next.
It's Manic Monday, and that means every pick at WagerTalk.com is just $9. Get a play in any sport valued at up to $30 for just $9 each and every Monday at WagerTalk.com.
Welcome back to the WagerTalk Podcast. In this week's Handicappers Corner, we're going to wrap up the season previews in the NFL. All that's left is the NFC South and West. Let's get it started with the NFC South. This is going to be a good one, guys. You got the Saints that came out of nowhere last year. I mean, not nowhere, but they changed their identity last year. They weren't Drew Brees throwing the football all over the field. They had one of the best running attacks in football, and that made Drew Brees a better quarterback, in my opinion, and probably bought him a couple more years. They went out this just a couple days ago and got an insurance policy, which tells me this team is all in. They think this is a Super Bowl team, and to go out and give a third-round draft pick for Teddy Bridgewater, who's only got 1 year left on his current contract and can become a free agent, tells me they're all in. Ralph, how do you see it?
Well, it clearly is. It's just they feel there's value. Remember, Bridgewater was a first-round draft pick for Minnesota, and besides the injury, he's still a first-round player. And what happened was he proved with the Jets this year exactly what he could do. He could take a hit. He could run the offense. So, for the Saints, it is just insurance if Breeze goes down. But, you're talking about the Saints, and I like the Saints. I have the Saints as one of my top 8 teams in football this year. And, we're talking about the NFC South, and I have the Falcons as well. And this is one of these conferences that I truly believe those two teams with Carolina can be 3 playoff teams. I think we could get 3 teams out of this NFC South that's that strong. You add Tampa Bay in the mix, and if, never knows what happens with Fitzpatrick after a suspension if he keeps his job. I mean, Winston, if he keeps his job or Fitzpatrick keeps it after the suspensions. But, Tampa Bay is an improved team. To me, this is the best division in football from top to bottom. If you take all the teams, add up their NFL power ratings for me.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think Atlanta and New Orleans both have a chance to be really good. Carolina, I'm less certain of, but they have a high ceiling. I think they've also got a lower floor.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah.
Tampa, unfortunately, looks like they're a little behind the others, but if you put Tampa in any one of a number of other divisions, perhaps any division, they probably wouldn't be a last-place team.
In the North.
Yeah.
In the AFC North, I mean, behind Pittsburgh probably. They're in that Baltimore-type range.
Yeah. So I would go along with pretty much everything you said.
I agree 100%. I think the division is New Orleans and Atlanta. I'm very high on Atlanta this year. The Saints, that defense got improved last year instantly because of the running game. It kept the defense off the field.
Look, they should have been. They should still be playing. It's not for that.
Yeah, the miracle
play.
Yeah.
I mean, with that cornerback, what the hell was he doing? I mean, they win the game.
And I agree with you, Dave, on Carolina. Carolina's only going to go as far as Cam Newton takes them.
Well, that's the thing. Carolina. If you tell me Carolina gets the Super Bowl, I'm not shocked. But if you tell me Carolina goes 6-10, I'm also not shocked. Right. I think that's the big swing team where anything could happen.
Agreed, Dare. Let's move on to the NFC West. I don't know if there's going to be anybody going to argue. It's the Rams and then everybody else.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
No, I've made no bones about it. And I think the Rams feel strongly that way themselves, which is why we're not risking anybody in the preseason. Right. We know what we've got. I thought the total opened low on them. You know, they won 11 games last year, and the total was 10. And Seattle's going backwards. They're not as good as a team as they've been. Arizona looks like they're just going to be lousy. And the 49ers, I think, will be okay, but they're probably a little bit overhyped. I think the Rams win the division. I think they've got a good chance to get to the Super Bowl. And I would not rule out a potential MVP coming from this team, whether it be Todd Gurley or Jared Goff. They are exciting on offense. The defense is better. Okay? They didn't dawdle on the signing with Donald. They picked up some good talent in the offseason, especially Talib, who's an old pro, can still play the position. I like this team as much as any in the league.
Ralph, I'm going to ask you with San Francisco, all the hype coming into the season obviously was Jimmy Garoppolo. Now that you've seen him in the preseason 3 games, do you think he is ready? Is the hype warranted from that 5-0 finish last year, or is he going to have some growing pains this year?
No, and I think you, Marco, talked about it in a video. A lot of that success came from who they played, teams that weren't involved in any playoff chases, teams that had injuries. You know, their road wins were Chicago, Houston, and at the end, the LA Rams, who was resting everyone. The home wins were Tennessee and Jacksonville. Jacksonville wasn't playing anyone. That was the second last week. Right. So you now have film on Garoppolo. There's no surprises. You know, I have San Francisco in that 15-16 range, middle of the road in the NFL, and the Rams, you know, a top 5 or 6 team. So I clearly agree with Dave. It's the Rams and nobody. It's the most top-heavy division there is, and I think the Rams can run away with it with a huge record and rest people and have that playoff setup moving forward.
We're all in agreement Seattle's going backwards. The big question is how far do you think they drop this year?
I think it could be fairly steep. I mean, the offensive line doesn't look good at all. The defense, the Legion of Boom, is more like a Legion of Doom. Whatever.
Yeah, it's broken apart.
It's like it's more like the American Legion now, or something. I don't know. You know, that was not a knock on the American Legion, but it's kind of like old guys and stuff.
You know, we're going to learn a lot about Russell Wilson this year because Russell Wilson, some people have him as an elite quarterback in that top 5 or 6 range. We're going to learn a heck of a lot this year without the surrounding people he has and without that defense that gives him great field position, keeps his offense out on the field, and being able to play against a tired defense.
Now, the one thing I want to mention on the Cardinals is this is going to be interesting because we're going to see an old-school approach this year where the Cardinals are going to run the football, and they're going to run it a lot. I think they're going to try and lengthen game or shorten games, I should say, by not running 9 million plays. They obviously have to keep David Johnson on the field. He's such an integral part of that team. But if he stays healthy, this is a team that they're going to run the ball and try and stop the run. And that's still a philosophy that works. I have always been a believer. I know, you're an old guy. Well, you look at the stats. In teams that consistently outgain their opponents on the ground, win football games. I like the approach they're taking. I don't think there's enough talent for them to be good, but I'm not ready to consider the Cardinals as bad as everybody thinks they're going to be. I would not be shocked if they beat Seattle out for third place in the division.
Rosen as the starter by the end of the year?
I think so, yeah. I think he's just a pretty advanced kid. I don't think his ceiling is as high as Darnold or even Allen. Allen has a very high ceiling, but he has the higher floor. He has the highest floor of any of these draft choices. I don't think there's any way Rosen's going to be worse than an average NFL quarterback, and he could be better than that.
I think that Arizona, what you say, Dave, I agree with you. They're not going to be a team that's going to put up a lot of W's, but I think they're going to be an underdog, in most of their games, that they're going to cover some spreads because of the style of play that they're going to have.
But I think they can get to 7. Maybe that's the ceiling. 7 might be good enough for third place. I think Seattle.
7's going to be good enough for third place.
Yeah, Seattle's got it. I mean, I could be dead wrong. Carroll still knows what he's doing. There's still some talent there, but I just get the feeling this could be where it all comes apart for Seahawks.
And remember 2 years ago, David Johnson was the most dynamic person in football.
Great player.
And so 1 year removed from the injury, they say he's healthy. He looks like he's healthy, and we all hope he is because he adds a lot to the NFL.
It was a wrist, right?
Yeah, he went down.
It's not like a knee where he loses a step or something like that. I mean, if you saw him in the preseason, it's very limited duty, but it's like, holy cow.
Yeah, he made a couple cuts and he looks great.
Man.
Absolutely did, yeah.
I think the characteristic of Seattle is going to be different this year, obviously, because of that defense. I think they're going to have to take the reins off of Russell Wilson, and this is going to be a team that's going to have to try to get into some high-scoring games. I don't know they got enough firepower to do it. That offensive line, it was the concern last year. I haven't seen enough out of them in the preseason to think they fixed that. But moving forward, Seattle's not a team that I'm going to be wanting to back early on.
Nope.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to preview some of the biggest games for the weekend. College football will start one off Friday night when we come back next on the WagerTalk Podcast.
Every Tuesday, WagerTalk.com offers a best bet selection from its hottest handicapper. It's a great way to introduce yourself to WagerTalk.com with a big best bet winner for just $2 on $2 Tuesday.
Welcome back to the WagerTalk Podcast. Time to check out the weekend football action. Let's get it started. Friday night, guys, San Diego State travels to Stanford. Now, guys, Ralph, me and you did a video at WagerTalk this week, and we talked about sandwich spots. And last year, this was the mother of all sandwiches. I mean, this was actually a full-blown foot-long because you had Stanford sandwiched in between two of the big games last year. They had...
Well, first of all, they played Australia game. So they played Australia week 0 against Rice.
I keep forgetting that.
Then
week
they came
0.
back to the mainland and went to USC, and they had UCLA on deck.
So, yeah,
They played a third straight road game at San Diego State.
Yeah, and San Diego State, a good team, runs the football well. Stanford, last year, uncharacteristic. This team could not stop people defensively. And that's always been Shaw's, signature with his teams. They've been good defensive ball clubs. They were anything but that last year.
Stanford still remembers the Aztec fans storming the field last year. One thing to remember is Chris was the quarterback in this game last year, and I think I'm on record as saying I don't think he's a particularly good quarterback. The kid who took over as the season went over,
Costello,
yeah, he's a much better player. They got the best running back in the country, and last year, as bad as they were in that game, he ran for almost 200 yards,
114 yards per carry, 184 yards, 14 yards per carry. And now you add Costello to it. Yeah.
I mean, San Diego State's still going to be a good football team. Okay, they've got another good young running back. He just churns them out like clockwork. And Rocky Long's teams always play good defense. But I think they're getting Stanford at the wrong time. There's no chance of them looking past this, even though they got USC next week. That revenge motive is pretty big. I think San Diego State might be missing a couple of guys who might take some time to replace in the defense. I think Stanford's got a chance to bury him in this game. I know there's some money been showing up on the Aztecs. They've been really good as underdogs. I believe they've won outright. The last 5 times they've been posted as underdogs.
5-0 ATS the last 3 years, yeah.
I think they won them all, straight up, if I'm not mistaken.
Very well could have.
But I don't think they're winning this one. And I think the number's reasonable at roughly 14. So I would favor Stanford here.
Yeah, and the fact that Stanford couldn't stop them on the ground, they ran the football in that game, San Diego State, 49 times at Stanford. They couldn't get off the field. The time of possession was 42-18 in that game.
It was an embarrassing loss for Stanford. And the fact is, they still almost won. As badly as they played, they almost won the game anyway. San Diego State needed a late touchdown to win the game.
And people are going to say, well, I pointed out the sandwich spot for Stanford in that game last year, and they're going to say, well, they got a bigger game on deck now. Not after you lose. No. When you lose the revenge and you lose to one, like I want to refer to one of the little brothers of the state.
They got their ass kicked.
Yeah, they're not going to look past this team. I'll let you finish this one up, Ralph.
I am going to be a voice for the dog. I still think the situation with USC on deck, you're not going to show as much. You do have 6 players out for the Cardinal this game, including your starting center and cornerback. You do have a situation where you have a very bad coach as a home favorite. He doesn't extend the lead. He's just happy to have a lead. If he's got a 10-point lead, he's fine. It leaves a lot of room open for a backdoor cover. And, I think that I like the San Diego State 3-3-5 defense against the rush. Yes, they gave up a lot of yards, but they have that year of film. So I'm actually going to go against you two, and I will lean with the dog.
Well, that backdoor cover, the one thing with the backdoor cover, you've got a Stanford team that has the best running back. When you're trying to kill clock, you're doing something that you do very well and can add to the lead.
Look, we're going to find out early. Because if the Aztecs have another good running back, and this kid's supposed to be pretty good, but he's got a ways to go to catch up to what they've had the last couple of years. But if they can run the ball, they're going to be in the game. If they can't run the ball and they have to throw, they don't have the quarterback to do it.
Agreed.
All right. Let's go to Saturday. We talked about this game earlier with Chris. We got Texas at Maryland. You want to talk about, a bad situation. Now, let's start with there's going to be some, it's going to be an emotional setting as far as Maryland goes, the kid that passed away and everything. But once we get past, this is a train wreck right now at Maryland with what happened. You've got Matt Canada going to take over the coaching duties. Here's a guy, this is his third stop in 3 years. He was at Pitt 2 years ago.
Was the best OC in the country at Pitt, and was the worst OC in the country last year at LSU.
Yeah, I mean, everybody talked about LSU's finally going to have an offense after they saw what he did at Pitt.
Disaster.
Yeah, and he's gone. So now he's going to be the head coach. Well, I'm going to talk more about this one later in the show. I'll let you guys have the floor now.
I'm not going to play the game for a couple of reasons. I think Maryland's a great unknown right now. What I'm told, and I'm not there, so it's secondhand information, but I do have good sources. The kids, they hated the coach. Hated him. And they're happy he's gone. Okay? I mean, obviously they're not happy about what happened with McNair. It's a tragedy.
Talking the head coach, not the strength coach. The strength and conditioning coach or the head coach?
Yeah. Just the whole...
Gotcha.
He was one of those old school guys, and I'm not sure if those guys played at today's crowd.
He was a drill sergeant, basically.
Yeah. Well, it's 2018. Those guys, the Woody Hayes method of coaching just doesn't work anymore. I'm sorry if you're a Woody Hayes fan, but if Woody Hayes were to be resurrected and come back and coach a team right now, he might never win a game because kids don't stand for that stuff anymore. It's a different world. What I'm also hearing, again, secondhand information, I'm not there, but I'm hearing that he's going to throw the playbook wide open. They're going to be they got a gimmick play. They're going to try. He's going to run stuff in this game and just have fun. That whole idea is to have fun and set a positive tone moving forward. I don't know how to handicap that. I really don't. I mean, this team's got nothing to lose. Everybody's expecting a train wreck from Maryland this season, and they might well be right. But I think I want to watch a game and see what the attitude of the team is. That's a lot of points now for Texas. And it's not like Maryland doesn't have some talent on that roster. They've got some players. Yeah. So if I had to play it, yeah, sure, I'd play Texas first because they're more of a known quantity at this point. But this might actually be a game kind of fun to watch because I got a feeling Maryland's going to throw, if there's a wrinkle somewhere deep in the playbook, it's going to show up in this game.
Well, as you said with Maryland, it is so tough to handicap because They went through so much attrition. They started 4 quarterbacks last year. Their defense
That's not that bad. What about go back a few years when they had to start the linebacker at quarterback?
Yeah, they had six, I think 6 or 5 started.
Like if you're a quarterback, don't go to Maryland because you're going to get hurt.
I don't think there was another team that started 4 quarterbacks because of injuries last year.
I don't think so.
And then you look at their defense, which just got mauled down the stretch. And when you had a walk-on playing quarterback, your defense was on the field 40 minutes a game. They allowed 35 points 8 of their last 11 games, and they haven't been good against ranked teams. They're 4-9 ATS, 1-12 straight up. Plus, you got to remember, this isn't in Maryland. It's in Washington, D.C. or Landover. Yes, it's in Maryland, the state, but you're going to have a lot of Texas alum that are in the Washington, D.C. area, and it's not going to be your normal home crowd. So, while Dave said there may be some wrinkles, I'm buying into Tom Herman in his second year. He's now got the personnel he needs. They underachieved for me last year again, and Texas has underachieved each of the last 50 years, it seems like. But to me, I'm buying in with Texas. They have the revenge factor, losing as an 18-point favorite. So the line's got a little high for me, but I would certainly lean with them.
All right, the game that I'm the most excited to watch this week, and I know we've got several good games on the slate, but I don't think there's one better than Washington and Auburn.
Huge game.
And Dave, you and I talked about this game earlier in the week on the radio show. If you lose this game, you're not out of the national title picture.
Auburn's not.
Washington, because of the Pac-12, it is more important for them to come out of this game a winner. And, guys, you talk about the job that Chris Peterson has done there. This is a guy that's gone 37-17 at Washington. This is his best team he's had by far.
On paper, it's a great team. On paper, it's a top 10 team on paper with a quarterback who
4-year starter.
Yep.
This is everything you could ask for.
Here's why I didn't play the game. When's the last time Browning had a good game against a really good team?
You're exactly right.
He just hasn't done it. He has not stepped up in the big games. And that's why he's still in college, by the way, because otherwise the kid would have gotten drafted. I think Washington might be better than Auburn, but they're going to have to prove to me that they can get the offense going with Browning at quarterback against a quality team. Now, you might make the argument that Auburn's defense is beatable. Certainly wasn't a bowl game last year. But I just don't trust Washington enough to play him. If I had to bet it, I guess I'd take the Huskies. But the beauty of college football or any sports betting is you don't have to bet at something if you don't want to, and I don't want to.
I actually have a strong opinion on Auburn. I like them. You look at what Washington did last year, and even with the success they had, they played 2 ranked teams all year. They played Stanford and Penn State. What happened in those 2 games, as Dave said, they got outgained by 150 yards per game. Auburn played 7 ranked teams. They were plus 70 yards per game. And when you look at Washington's quarterback, he is not the same quarterback if he faces man-to-man coverage. His timing is just completely off. Auburn has my second best D-line in the country behind Clemson. They can get pressure on him, and they're going to be able to play press with the corners. I think that's night and day the reason Auburn wins this. You're in the middle of SEC country. Oh, yeah, and by the way, you want to talk about a fired-up team? This is the 3rd straight game Auburn has played in the stadium. What did they do the first 2? Well, they lost to Georgia in the SEC championship. They lost to UCF in the Peach Bowl, and now they're playing this venue again for the 3rd straight time. SEC country, I give Auburn a 2-point home edge here, and I like the Tigers.
Maybe they just don't play well here.
Well, that was just simply a case.
The bowl game, they were dead.
We saw Florida State lose to Houston. We've seen Wisconsin barely get past Western Michigan. That Power 5 bowl team that plays that Group of 5 team, it's just too tough to get motivated. And we've seen that happen year in and year out.
Especially when
you lost your national championship.
You lost your national.
They beat Georgia. They play for the title.
Your bubble burst and you're done.
Yes. Yeah, there's no question about that. For me, guys, I'm on Washington, and I know I can't disagree with anything you guys said about Jake Browning. He hasn't been a money quarterback yet. But he came back for his senior year. Like you said, he has to. But this season's worth a lot of money to him, what he does.
This game is.
Yeah. And this is a statement game. And I'll tell you what, Auburn, I think their offense is going to struggle the first few weeks. They got to replace the 2 big running backs. They lost a lot of key people last year. Yes, they got the quarterback back, Stidham, but I just don't see them being able to move against this Washington defense that is solid. Well, the Washington's, and I know they don't play an SEC schedule, but they put up some impressive numbers last year.
They have the best DBs in all of football. So, Washington's secondary is the best in all of football.
If this game was played 3 weeks from now, I would have a totally different opinion. Give Auburn 3 games under their belt, get the continuity. But for out of the gate, I'm going to go with Washington in this one. Heading over to this is the big one for a lot of people.
It's the small one for me.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, look, that's the Michigan Notre Dame.
Yeah.
This is the kind of two-sided coin in our business. If I have a play on this game, it's going to do a lot of sales. So
this is the touch game that people are going to sell. Other services
this will be the
and other sites.
Best-selling game.
Oh, this is the TV game. I guarantee a lock on this game.
It's the best-selling game on the schedule. It's also, of the entire schedule, the game I have the least amount of opinion on. Nothing. I have no idea what's going to happen in this game. So, the 0% play for me on nobody. I'm just not going to sit here and make up stuff that I don't believe. I don't know what's going to happen in this game.
I have a slight opinion, but by no means is it anywhere near a play for me. But, I think, people rip Jim Harbaugh getting 10 wins his first 2 years and going down to 5 wins last year. I think it was Harbaugh's best season last year. He only had one returning starter on defense, and that defense allowed under 19 yards per game and under 350 yards per game with one starter back. This year, you have 17 starters back, including 9 on the defensive side of the ball. And then you add Ole Miss transfer Shea Patterson. I think that's enough to get it done. For those stats and angles people in this series, the dog is 23-7-1 against the spread with 17 outright upsets in 31 games. Although this game is close to pick 'em, the favorites gone back and forth.
We've had two dogs in this game.
That means nothing. I just share that with you how close it's been and how being a favorite or being the supposed better team in the series hasn't meant anything.
Well, obviously, it's never been a problem with the Michigan defense. He's always, put a good defense on the field. The problem for Michigan has been the situation is for Harbaugh being a quarterback, former quarterback, he's never been able to get a quarterback. And guys, if I'm distracted, I got to tell you, I got to tell you what's going on in the studio right now.
Because Ralph put money. He made the mistake of bringing money into it, so I made it.
He was 3-25 shooting his wadded up paper into the wastebasket.
Yeah,
so I threw out a 20, and Dave makes one. He swishes it perfectly.
Yeah, it's like unbelievable.
Put the money on the line. I'm making that putt, man.
Have you been missing all these throws on purpose for like the last 6 months, trying to set up
you guys.
For a $20 bill?
Yep.
Oh my God. Okay, you guys. I'm trying to break down the game, and I got money changing hands, and Dave cannon shots in the studio.
Day. I had a 12-1 shot at Delaware Park. It's a pretty good.
But the thing is, people are buying in that Shea Patterson is the answer, that Harbaugh's finally found a quarterback for his offense. And until he does it, I'm not going to buy into Shea Patterson. I like Shea Patterson, but guys, he's learning a new system. He's got to go to South Bend. Whether you like Notre Dame or not, there is a ton of mystique and tradition going in to that stadium for the first time. And it's going to be done under the lights. I'm taking Notre Dame here. I think the line, when South Point opened it up back in May, they were off. Let's just face it. But now I think the numbers swayed too much with the Harbaugh bandwagon, everybody jumping on. I like Notre Dame at home to get the job done. And, Kelly's on the hot seat. He needs to win this year at Notre Dame. Alumni's getting a little bit,
Yeah, they're always like that. He's fine. They're going to win their share of games. All right.
That's it.
That
Done. Wraps up. We have one last.
No, we got a Sunday game.
We got a Sunday game, yeah. You crumbled up your notes, Dave.
I don't need it for Miami and LSU because I am excited about this game. Not going to be a play for me, but Miami is the better football team. Okay, and it's just a question of whether, and I don't trust Rick a lot in big games, and it's not exactly the perfect location for Miami. But if they play their game, they're going to beat LSU, and this is a guy that he can outcoach. I think Oregon is on the hot seat.
No question.
He came close to losing the job one point last season. He's a great recruiter, a terrific assistant. I don't know, as a head coach. I think Miami gets him here. I don't think it's going to make my card because I think they kind of put it in the line, and I'm not getting the value I want with Miami. But push comes to shove, I'm on the Canes here.
Ralph, you look at LSU. They lost 14 starters, last year. Several that went to the NFL. This is an offense that has always been a problem for LSU. For whatever reason, they can't get an offense that can go up and down the field. Their defense is always good. They went out. We talked about it. Matt Canada, they bring him in. That was supposed to be the savior for the offense. That was a one-year project, one and done.
Didn't really have say what you want. I don't think he had really good offensive talent there.
Oh, I don't either. And you talked about the experience, Marco, or the lack of it. There's 130 teams in FBS football. LSU is number 129 as far as returning experience.
Dude,
they're at the very bottom.
That's not good.
Last of all the Power 5
teams.
teams.
And then they lost a couple players due to suspension on top of that. How you could back LSU in this game, you can't. You're paying a little bit of a price for it because, the line's creeping up there. But it's Miami or nothing for me in this one.
Can we do any Ed Ortegon impressions for after the game?
Yeah.
I have no idea what he's saying.
It's like Waterboy.
He sure is.
It's like the guy in Waterboy. You don't understand what he's but okay, but seriously, right. I agree with you, and I do a weekly show in New Orleans on WWL with Seth Dunlap, and in the middle of the summer, when Joey Burrow transferred, I said, there's no way in hell Joey Burrow is going to be your starting quarterback. He transferred from Ohio State this year. Well, now he is, and the other guys transferred out, so he's stuck with Joey Burrow. And Emsvinger is their new OC, and he talked about being up-tempo and running the pace. But from what I've heard from my guys in New Orleans is that they're not going to be that up-tempo. They're going to be very traditional offense.
To me, you got to get the right players to run that kind of an offense. They're a defense-first team, so don't kill your defense by playing fast break on offense. Doesn't make sense to me.
And I think that's what they do, and I actually lean with the under here. The total's about 46.5, which is a pretty low total. But when you get those isolated games, but with this game being in Houston, the neutral setting, the NFL stadium, I actually have a lean with the under in this game.
Yeah, and I think the only thing that's going to keep this line from going crazy is you're going to have people that are going to look at it and say it's ACC versus SEC, and you got the SEC as a dog. You're going to get some people that are going to play LSU just based on that. All right, guys, we're going to take our last break. When we come back, it's Best Bets. That's up next here on the WagerTalk Podcast. Welcome back to the WagerTalk Podcast. This is the final segment. This is what you wait for. It is the Best Bet section of the show, and we are going to get it started with Dave. He's got a Friday night play for you. Dave, what is it?
One of the games we talked about, San Diego State at Stanford. I think Stanford might like to rub a little salt in the wound if they've got San Diego State down in this game. And they've got a Heisman Trophy candidate. They'd like to get off to a spectacular start. They might be able to do it here. Big revenge game, not the scheduling look-ahead spot they had last year against this team, and I think maybe they catch the San Diego State at the right time here. The Aztecs are pretty good, but Stanford, borderline top 15 team, maybe even a little better than that. They could win the Pac-12. I think Stanford pretty comfortably here. A lot of points, but I'll lay them with the Cardinal.
All right, I can't disagree with you, Dave. Ralph, you're on Friday night, too, and, well, you're laying some lumber on Friday night, big guy.
I'm using this for two reasons. Number one, I want to talk about this game to our listeners, and people have the mentality that, well, if you're going to lay a huge number, 35, 28, no matter what it is, that you want that high-flying passing offense to do it. And, while that's true in some respects, there are a lot of bullies that like to pass and keep passing the ball and beat up teams. I'm backing the Wisconsin Badgers minus the 35 against Western Kentucky. And you look at what Wisconsin does when they're a big favorite. They cover. Why do they cover? Well, they have the best O-line in football, 4 Big Ten players in front of an All-American running back. They pound the ball. They tire out a smaller defense like Western Kentucky has. Then what happens? You don't want to embarrass a team, so you pull your starters out. Well, what do you have? You have a second unit that's practiced together all spring and all summer. behind a running back who's probably going to be a Big Ten running back in the next year or two. What happens? You tire out that defense more. Those 4, 5, 6-yard carries turn into 10, 15, 50-yard carries. And if you're running the ball, there's nothing you can do. A passing team may change up their offense and start running the ball. Wide receivers aren't used to run blocking. Tight ends aren't used to run blocking. And you get a different mentality, and the team is totally out of sync. When you're Wisconsin, you're not going to kneel the ball at the beginning of the fourth quarter. You're going to run your offense. They're going to have to stop you, and that's where you tend to get those big gaps, and Wisconsin wins games 52-0 like they often do. So, again, it seems going against the trend, but I like playing this trend. Wisconsin minus the points.
I've always said when you've got a running team and you're laying points, a big number of people always go, oh, well, they can get backdoored. No, they can't, because when they're trying to run the clock out, they're doing what they do best. And they're keeping the other team off the field, doing it, and they end up adding scores. I agree with you, Ralph. Good stuff there. I'm going to go to the game we talked about, the Maryland-Texas game, and this is one for me that it's the second year for Tom Herman. He went into Texas last year, got a team. His style of offense and the players that he had weren't the same. This was a spot where I'm looking at second year, they're going to be better. Throw in revenge. And why do I want to throw in revenge? We always talk about revenge, and there's different things. That was an embarrassing loss last year for him. It was his first game there at Texas. All of that hoopla, everybody excited with what's going on and him coming in. What happens? They get beat, and their defense got embarrassed. They gave up a ton of points to Maryland. What's Tom Herman in revenge games? How about 9-3 against the spread? And in non-conference games, 10-1 against the spread.
And Marco, a lot of that comes from learning under Urban Meyer when he was the OC. Urban Meyer is the same way. Off a loss or with revenge, you get that mentality from the coaches that you coached under, and I think he's going to carry that over. I completely agree with that.
And then throw in, the situation that we've got at Maryland. It's just a bad spot for them. I know they're going to come out and be emotional at the beginning of the game, but, if Texas puts up 14 quick points on this team, this thing could get ugly in a hurry, and I don't see Herman taking his foot off the gas. He's not going to want to embarrass them with everything else that's gone on there this offseason, but I think Matt Canada's in over his head here for this game.
And listen, a 21-point win is not embarrassing. I mean, to have the lead and extend the lead, especially when you've lost a couple games last year, when you had the lead into halftime, that's going to make you ensure you come out in the third quarter, want to score a few more times, extend that lead to make sure your season doesn't get off to that negative start.
Absolutely. All right, guys, I want to thank our guests tonight, Chris Andrews, for stopping by. Big thanks to Ralph Michaels and Dave Cokin for joining me in studio. Mark Seidel for making sure we sound good behind the controls. Big shout out to our man, Johnny Detroit. He makes sure this podcast is available everywhere. You can subscribe to our podcast in iTunes. Also listen to us on Spotify, Google Play, and iHeartRadio. And last but not least, I want to thank you guys, our loyal listeners. Without you, we don't have a podcast. I want to wish everybody have a safe and fun Labor Day weekend. We'll be back next week. NFL starts next week. We'll be breaking down college and NFL games each week for you here on the podcast. I'm your host, Marco D'Angelo. Till next week, let's cash some tickets.